All right, Greg informs me the room's about settled with attendees for the start anyway. So let me call this meeting to order, December 15th, regular meeting of the Oceanside Unified School District School Board. Start out with the roll. Vice President Stacy Begin, are you here?
Present.
Clerk of the board, Eric Joyce.
Present.
Board member Raquel Alvarez.
Present.
Board member Eleanor Evans, excuse me.
Eleanor Evans is present.
Thank you. Eleanor Evans is present. Eleanor Jones is not. My apologies. All right. The next item is to report out from closed session. Public report of one action that was taken. It was related to item D. It was a conference with legal counsel, and we entered into a settlement agreement with involving a student and the family for $39,000 by a unanimous vote of 5-0 with case number 20200802881. And that again was approved by a 5-0 vote by the board. All right. Next item is student representative reports. We've got, I've got listed here, the first one being Brianna Shea from El Camino. Brianna? There she is.
Brianna, not Brian.
Brianna, got it. Thank you.
I'm teasing.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good
Our
evening.
pleasure.
My name is Brianna Shea, and I'm the representative from El Camino High School. During this time, we are making the most of using our social media platforms. Winter Break Spirit Week.
Go ahead.
Okay, Winter Break Spirit Weeks. Every year, before going on winter break, ASB holds a Spirit Week to keep the holiday spirit alive. Meme Monday, where students replicate their favorite memes. Tuesday, holiday colors. Freshmen wear green, sophomores wear red, juniors wear blue, and seniors wear white. Winter Wednesday. Students and teachers send in pictures of them wearing their winter outfits. Thursday is Ugly Sweater Thursday, and Friday is Flannel Friday. EC standouts. El Camino's Environmental Club has dedicated their time every Saturday to clean up local beaches and parks. They have collected over 480 pounds of trash and 116 pounds of that being recycled. Our woodshop class has a project to build bridges out of popsicle sticks. One of the popsicle sticks bridges was able to hold over 215 pounds. Pretty amazing. Two of our El Camino Golf Scholar athletes, Janae and Jasmine Laveo, were recently featured in the Outsider magazine in the Outside's Finest section. Janae and Jasmine are twins set to graduate with the class of 2022 and maintain a 4.0 GPA. As well, they are committed to play golf at SDSU. ASB elections. Last week, ASB kicked off our virtual convention promoting students running for certain positions. We'll be posting results this Friday. Thank you for having me and happy holidays.
Thank you so much, Brianna. Next I have up is Gabby Cumbrell from Oceanside High. Are you here, Gabby?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you're up.
Good evening, board and community members. Thank you for allowing me to share what's happening at Oceanside High School. On November 30th, we presented the Proud Pirate Award to students Heidi Angeles Lopez, 9th grade, Yahira Yarquin, grade 10, Elizabeth Fernandez, grade 11, and Sunshine DL, grade 12. ASB presented their second virtual pep rally on Thursday, November 19th. The theme was Carnival, and all participants were people that you would see at the homecoming football game. There were performances by OHS Varsity Cheer, Varsity and JV, OHS Dance Team, OHS Band, and of course, our mascots Pete and Mooch made an appearance. The halftime show is Cheer TikTok. Most of our class council held an election. Candidates submitted applications and delivered their speeches through Google Classroom. Officers were announced this coming week. We currently have 20 board-approved ASB clubs and more than 150 students regularly participating in at least one club. Students in
cut out, Gabby?
Local retirement homes.
There we
Junior
go.
citizen. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry.
Keep going.
Okay, sorry. Um, having online learning. ASB is planning for new students to have campus tours. Cheer team is holding a toy drive where there's a box under the marquee in front of the entrance. We are having a Spirit Week plan beginning Saturday, December 13th that will end Friday, December 18th. We just recently learned that Ivan Rodriguez and Jose, class of 2020, are moving to Mexico at the end of the month to begin their career as professional soccer players. We wish them love and luck and farewell. Thank you for your time, and we are looking forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, Gabby. We appreciate the report. And finally, from Surfside Academy, we have Lourdes Martinez Rendon. Lourdes?
Yes, I am here. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Vitali, and guests. My name is Lourdes Martinez Renton, and I am the student representative for Surfside Educational Academy this evening. Our K-5 independent study program has been going well. They've been progressing through the curriculum both virtually and with in-person instruction. During the month of December, students have been given the choice to study cultures and holidays around the world, do a project-based learning unit, or design their own learning project. In-person instructions have been exploring computer aid in Tinkercad and use this technology to print gifts for the parents using a 3D printer. They have also been creating mixed media art projects and uncycled plastic bags to create PE equipment. Our middle school program currently has 46 students in 6th through 8th grade, and 89% are passing their courses at a C or better range, with most in the B or better range. All students are enrolled in mathematics, integrated science, history, and English. If you're taking an extra elective such as Spanish or career exploration. Ms. Keene and Ms. Cooper are very proud of the students' progress. Ingenuity is a rigorous program, so it adds an extra sense of pride that the students are doing well. The number one reason for student success is the outstanding parent support. Congratulations to our most recent graduate from both Surfside High School and Surfside Education Academy Independent Study Program. Peyton Morgan, Daniel Hernandez Gomez, and Kalena Tulu. We wish them all the best as they pursue their post-graduation goals. Great job, Peyton, Morgan, and Kalena. On Thursday, December 17th, the Surfside Education Academy Comic Arts Club is taking a virtual field trip to the Comic Con Museum Character Hall of Fame virtual induction ceremony of Pac-Man. People all around the world will be participating, and the Comic Arts Club students at Surfside will be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report, Lourdes. Appreciate it. That concludes the student reports. The next item, item D, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. All right, the next item is board organization, administration of the oath of office. Julie, you're going to handle this?
Yes, I will handle this. We are inducting 2 board members to our Board of Education, re-inducting, re-elected to the Board of Education, board member, board president Mike Blessing, and board member Eleanor Evans. So I will administer the oath of office to both of you simultaneously. So all I need you to do is repeat after me. I, please state your name,
Mike Blessing,
I, Eleanor Evans,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I
I
will
will
support and defend the Constitution of the United States
States and
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all
Against
enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear
I will
true
bear true
faith
faith
and
and
allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the
to the
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take
That
this
I take
obligation freely
freely
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that
And
I
that
will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie, for administering that to us this year. We didn't have a judge for us this year, but you do just fine. And congratulations, Eleanor. Appreciate it.
Congratulations to you too, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. Next item is the election of board president. And Julie, you're going to handle this one for me, right?
Yes, this is our organizational meeting, so we do have some business to do for the 2021 board year. So I'd like to call for a motion for the nomination for someone to serve as our 2021 President of the Board of Education.
Madam Superintendent, I would like to nominate Stacy Begin. She's done a great job this past year. She ran a couple meetings even in my absence or my inability to do a meeting, and I think she'll make a great president this year. So I put her name into nomination.
I would like to second that, please.
So we have a nomination by Mike, a second by Raquel. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You accept the nomination, Stacy?
Yes, I do. Thank
Any-
you.
That's a 5-0.
Thank you for the honor and opportunity and the responsibility. Yikes. I'd like to take my first thing. I'd like to say thank you to Mike Bussing. You're entering your 4th term on our board. Your wisdom and perspective are a huge asset to our board in keeping us collaborative and cohesive. And thanks for being president in these unprecedented times during a pandemic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stacy, for that. And all you guys, it's been my pleasure. You guys have helped me go through this tough year too, tremendously. And it has been a challenge. You're right. Not to mention the Zoom stuff on top of it all, which was my tech nightmare, right? So, but at any rate, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And look forward to better things in 2021. That's for sure.
Definitely. So I guess I get this party started. We'll move on to item C, election of the vice president of board. I call for a motion.
I would nominate Eric Joyce to be vice president.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Eric, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I appreciate the nomination. I would accept it.
All right. So all in favor of Eric Joyce being vice president?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Eric. All right. And we're moving on to item D, election of the clerk of the board. I call for a motion.
I'll nominate Raquel Alvarez.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you, Mike Bussing. Raquel, do you accept that nomination?
I do accept it. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. All those in favor of Raquel Alvarez being clerk of the board this year, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Great.
Item E, appoint superintendent as secretary of the Board of Education. I call for a motion to appoint Julie Vitale, our superintendent, to continue as our secretary of the Board of Ed.
So moved.
I will not. Go ahead, Mike.
I just moved approval.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike and Eleanor. Any discussion? All right, we'll move forward for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Item F, approval of 2021 Board of Education meeting schedule. I call for a motion to make an approval.
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you,
approve
Raquel.
the calendar.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Eleanor has a second. So any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that we had shifted our meetings to longer meetings and once a month last year, and they were going swimmingly. And now we are facing this ever-present force of COVID-19 and its impact on our scholars and our community. So in the hopes of making sure that we have time to take care of the regular business of the board, and also to think about how COVID is impacting our scholars on a more regular basis, I'd like to suggest that we consider adding meetings, perhaps monthly, up until at least the summertime, so that we have a designated time to deal with the COVID-19 impacts.
Julie, do you have enough direction with that? Are you talking about workshops, right, Eric? Additional workshops, informal?
Correct. It's especially important to have the conversations around everything. And a workshop, I think, is the best format for that.
And right now we have 133 people in the audience. And what that means is the Board of Education as a group cannot have any conversations that aren't public. That means we have to hold a meeting and we have to have our conversations in public. So Eric, I agree with you that we really need to talk more often than once a month about some of the impact of the pandemic on our schools and our students.
So what we'll do, Stacy, if it's what you're asking for, if you approve tonight's regularly scheduled meetings of the board, then we can put together a calendar of workshops that would meet with the board's schedule and make them specifically about COVID as the topic, so that you can freely discuss. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, I think that's what we're looking for. I'm looking for head nods. So.
Yep. We'll do
Okay,
it.
so I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the meeting schedule?
Aye.
I,
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for the discussion. Item G, approval of authorized signature for the district.
Move approval.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Excellent. So the next item on the agenda is item 5, board reports. Is there a board member that would like to start first?
Stacy, do you mind going back
Oh.
just one quickly
Oh,
to the
sorry, it
superintendent's
was
report?
at the bottom of the page. Sorry about that. Superintendent's report.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. No problem. I just wanted to really call your attention to 2 items. You know, I know it's very difficult in the times that we're in to find some good news. There's really a lot of good news on this agenda, and 2 items specifically. Later, you'll be accepting the report on the declaring the election results for Proposition W. That the voters in Oceanside passed for the community of Oceanside and for our schools at 61.18%, and we only needed 55%. And that is really great news. And to coincide with that is we're giving an update on our Proposition H work that we have going on right now, in particular to specific school sites. And that is very exciting news. And again, I just want people to see some good that's happening and some excitement and some energy and positivity in the district as a result of the actions of the voters in Oceanside. So just wanted to draw your attention to those positive things and say once again, thank you to the community. And I know we're heading into break time and into holidays for people, and just urging everyone to please, please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I almost skipped over that. Sorry about that. Okay, let's move to item 5, board reports. Anybody want to go first?
None for me tonight, Stacy.
All right, thank you, Mike.
I'll go next.
Okay, great.
I attended the CSBA delegate meeting, and one of the discussions was providing more broadband support for our students, and hopefully it will happen. CSBA delegates are lobbying Sacramento for that. Okay, I also attended CTA meeting, as well as some other conferences. I serve as a commissioner for the County of San Diego, Leon L. Williams, Human Relations. And one of the things that really is important is that North County has a voice in what's happening with the County of San Diego. We've kind of been left out. East County, San Diego itself, seemingly has been able to be very well represented and get the demands that they want. One of the things that I would like if people would email me regarding what your perception, what your purpose, what you feel are some of the issues in North County regarding human relations, okay? And basically whether it's gender identity, race, religion, culture, ethnicity, citizenship, age, what do you feel are the issues that are going on in North County that also is affecting the County of San Diego to make us less than a cohesive civil group of people, because our goal is to be civil with each other. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Eric or Raquel?
I'll go. I attended a lot of workshops and town halls and county briefings about COVID-19 and trying to understand the best data that we have coming out about the virus and about how it spreads so that we can best make decisions as a school leadership team. I also attended the San Diego County of Education Ethnic Studies Work Group, which is a really great work group put on by the county that regionally we can come together and work on getting ethnic studies out and implemented across the county so that our students see themselves in their own educational literature and curriculum. I also attended advocacy meetings with both state and federal officials, and we can ask for money, we can ask for everything, but if the virus is not taken care of here at home, it doesn't matter. We have got as a community to slow the spread of the virus. That means wearing your mask, and that means staying at home for those that can't stay at home. We have a large working class base, heart of our community here in Oceanside, and they need you to stay at home when you can. So that's all I have to say. I want to come back in January and I want to have great positive news about how we stop the spread. That's all I hope for as a new year.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for your advocacy. I was on one of those meetings with you, and thanks for the invite today. All right, Raquel.
I've also attended some of those meetings, just community-wise, just trying to find out exactly how we're affected as a community. But I attended also a meeting as a Latina to see how we're affected as Latinos and within the pandemic itself. And so the fears and the communication and lack of communication that seems to happen, that was very clear within this meeting that I attended today. And so it opened my eyes a lot more than what I thought they already were. But we need to be able to communicate within our community itself as a whole, and for our families within our community. If you have a fear, please just be open and ask the questions, and ask us or myself or anybody that you may know within the community to help you understand, or if there's something that you may need help with, do not be afraid to ask what resources are out there, because there are many resources, and they've shared them, very easily for many people, and so we can easily pass those on. So please be aware that there are many resources that many people do not know about to share with each other. So but I also want to give a huge shout out to our nutritional services. I work with them serving our food out to our families, and I love doing that because it lets me see, because I think a lot of parents sometimes bring their children out just in a car ride just to get them away from the Zoom meetings and everything else. So just to see their faces is amazing, because you can't always just go into a classroom and see everybody anymore like we used to. And so sometimes in a drive through just seems to be an uplift for so many. But just our nutritional services as a whole, the work that they have done is amazing, and the love that they pour into everything that they do. I just want to give a huge shout out to them, and a huge thank you, because you have done amazing work during this time to come together and to make everything happen. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And it doesn't seem like that's a huge enough word to say, the way that you're there for our families, but thank you. And to all of our staff and teachers and everybody that, we're going through all this basically, and we're in this together, because we're all suffering through it. We're all living through this as parents, a lot of it, some of us on the board with our children in schools, and it's not easy. I know my child is struggling, and he goes through good times and bad times, but we're suffering through, and just as many of you are. And so just know that we are here trying to make, again, whatever it is, decisions that we have to make, that the end result is about safety. And it's wanting to be safe, not only within our schools, but within our community. And so just understand that for myself, the decisions are not always easy, but in the end result, it's about our families and our students and our staff within our district and our community. So thank you again for just working and believing in us and supporting us, and for just being who you are within our community. Just thank you.
Wow, thanks Raquel for that thoughtful report. I wanted to take a moment when we're on this line of thank yous. I wanted to take a moment to honor one of our retired teachers who recently passed away due to cancer. Her name was Kathy Goodson. She started in OUSD in 1985. She taught at Pacifica and at Reynolds. She provided over 30 years of service to our students, her colleagues, and our Oceanside community. Personally, she had a tremendous impact on my son and his progress at the elementary school as one of his teachers. Her legacy continues. Her daughter is also a teacher in our district as well. So if you guys would do me a favor and bow your head, and let's take a moment of silence to honor her dedication to our students and to the teaching profession. Thank you for that, and let's move on to our general consent items, number 6. We have quite a few of them in there. I call for a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent items.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 6, motion carries 5-0. All right, and now we're moving on to presentations. I'm going to turn that over to Julie.
Yes, we have 2 presentations for you this evening. Neither of them require action. The first one is an update on Prop H, and Penny McGrew is here to give us that update. And then the second presentation is on elementary report cards, and Dr. Mercedes Levy will kick us off. Shannon, would you like to kick off the Prop H bond modernizing update before Penny jumps in?
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vitale, and congratulations, President and Trustee Begin. Tonight, staff will be presenting an update on our Prop H, our modernization with San Luis Rey and with new progress on Jefferson. So with that, I would like to introduce Penny McGrew, who will be kicking off and going through the presentation this evening. With that, I will turn it over to Penny McGrew.
Thank you, Dr. Soto. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, President Begin, Superintendent Vitale, and esteemed board. Thank you again for the opportunity to present you an update on what we've been working on with the Prop H bond program. As always, I'm thrilled to share with you the exciting steps that we've taken since we last met. Next slide, please. Tonight we'll be presenting an update on the Prop H funds, the San Luis Rey modernization project, and what we've been working on over at Jefferson Middle School. Next slide, please. Let's review the current bond funds. Next slide. Before you is a summary of the Prop H funds. We have received Series A through F in the amount of $182.4 million. Of that, we've spent just $132 million and encumbered 3.8 million, leaving us a balance of $46.7 million. We anticipate one last series to be sold in 2022 for just under $13 million, which brings our total bonds received to the maximum amount of Prop H, which is $195 million. We have a total of 59 million left, but have earmarked approximately 30 million of that for ongoing bond projects, leaving a balance of about $29 million. Next slide, please. At San Luis Rey, we've continued on with the design process. Next slide. We start with an aerial view of the existing campus, and I can't wait to be able to update this photograph for you to look amazing. Next slide, please. As a reminder, you see the various phases of design that we spoke about and the various committees that are participating in the design effort. Next slide, please. The programming phase is complete and we're near completion of the schematic design phase. Since our last presentation to you, we've had an additional 12 meetings. We met twice with Nutrition Services, the VAPA group, and various consultants. We also met with the C's SPED group and the kindergarten group. The executive committee met 4 times, and we have a meeting with the planning committee scheduled for tomorrow. So we've been really busy. The purpose of these meetings was to further define the adjacencies of spaces and the general layout of the classrooms and supporting areas. We also started the discussion of what a typical classroom would look like, how the restrooms would need to be configured based on state requirements, and also researched and addressed concerns from the various meetings. Based on those discussions, the architect revised numerous areas to meet the goals of the school. The next phase will be design development, where we will finalize the concept design, start to identify materials, layouts, and begin the process of the plans and specifications. This phase will take approximately 10 to 12 weeks. Next slide, please. This is the overall timeline of the project and the associated weeks that we anticipate it will take for each phase. I know it's small, but in order to get it all on one slide, I had to shrink it a little bit, but I'll walk you through it. It starts from the beginning of June. It starts the process in June of this year and goes out to December of 2023. As stated before, we've completed the programming and are near completion on the schematic design, which is the light green and orange lines that you see. Programming took 16 weeks, which is typical because we have to gather the most information and meet with the most people. Schematic is 14 weeks and we anticipate being completed in January. The dark green and yellow lines show the rest of the design process. The dark green line indicates design development at 10 weeks with construction documents at 16 weeks. The gray line shows DSA, or the state architect, review and approval, and that is the one thing that we have no control over. So we're estimating right now 6 months or 20 weeks. The pink line is the bid and award process at 10 weeks, and the purple line is the actual construction. We anticipate that to take 18 months, or in weeks, that's 78 weeks. And then the last is FF&E installation, final moves, removal of interim housing, and contractual closeout at 8 weeks. Next slide, please. This site plan shows you the results of the schematic design thus far. We've placed the new classrooms in the area that best meet the needs of the educational programs, address potential parking and fire lane access, and have conceptualized some of the access compliance issues. This is exactly the purpose of the schematic design phase. Next, we'll focus a little bit on the specific areas of this drawing. Next slide, please. So zooming in on your left, you see the new proposed C's area. There was a lot of discussion about where this program would be located on site, and this area, located just east of Building C, was the preferred place. It places these classrooms in with the other buildings for a sense of cohesion. Yet it also allows for a small area specifically dedicated to the C's scholars. There will be a central classroom that will serve as a lab for both C's and SPED scholars. In the middle diagram, you see the kindergarten area. There is currently a kinder classroom that is held outside of the general kindergarten area because of space constraints. So we'll be adding a new classroom in the kinder area and bring all the kindergartners together in the same vicinity. We'll be reconfiguring their playground area and putting in additional restrooms. The far right diagram is the multi-purpose room and new administration area. The tan area with the diagonal lines is the kitchen area. We'll completely redesign this area with the freezer that is more accessible and a larger walk-in refrigerator. We'll expand the food service line area and provide additional dry storage. They'll be receiving new kitchen equipment as needed. The stage area and the new administration building is in blue. The new stage will be in addition to the NPR, which will increase seating for scholars and allow a bigger area for assemblies and additional seating for performances from the VAPA program. The new stage will have storage, a dedicated entry from the outside, and a bigger stage area than they currently have at SLR and what was at Garrison. The new administration building will house the principal and support staff, along with the health office and a conference room. It will also allow for a single entry point where visitors will have to go through administration to get on site. Next slide, please. In addition to the various meetings we've had in moving forward with the design, we've gathered and reviewed the reports that we received from the civil engineer work thus far and the hazardous assessment that was completed. Our civil engineer continues their work with the ground survey. This survey identifies elevation or grade changes from building to building and through the playgrounds and parking lots to assist the architect in addressing any access compliance issues. We've also begun the process of identifying standards for technology, material, and systems that will be passed along to the architect for incorporation into the specifications. Next slide, please. Our next steps are to finalize the schematic design phase and move forward into design development. We begin the process of incorporating materials, systems, and technology standards into the project. We also continue to monitor the budget against the estimates and further refine the logistics plan, which will assist us when we start to bring in temporary classrooms for interim housing. The logistics plan also considers other impacts to the site, such as contractor laydown area where they keep their office and construction materials, deliver of these materials, and phasing of the project. Next slide, please. We'll now go to Jefferson Middle School. Next slide, please. An aerial view of the existing campus. Next slide. We've completed the request for qualifications for the preliminary testing that needs to be completed prior to a modernization. Just like San Luis Rey, the civil engineer is doing a site survey and determining the site boundaries. They've requested the title report for the property. We have also contracted with a geotechnical engineering firm, and they have begun their work as well. Their work involves boring soil samples in various areas of the site to verify that there's no issue caused by the landfill nearby. They started boring last week and will complete this week. In addition, there was a hazardous assessment done in 2016. We had that updated and now it shows current conditions. Next slide, please. As part of the modernization discussion for Jefferson, we brainstormed ways to create an attractive and functional entry and what that might look like, along with a better traffic flow and parking. After several engaging meetings amongst staff, we put out a request for proposals to our pool of architects and asked them to submit a proposal and to provide a concept drawing of a reimagined front entry that would ease the traffic flow issues and create an inviting and clear entry as part of the overall modernization. We also asked them to provide us with a rough order of magnitude. 4 of the 5 firms in the pool responded and provided some creative ideas. Next slide, please. Before you are some of the ideas that were provided by the architects. Each firm did a fabulous job of visually enhancing the entry into Jefferson to make it clear and inviting. Some of the ideas used Canyon Drive as an access point, while others did not, but rather reconfigured existing spaces. To say we're excited to see these really was an understatement. We realized that the potential for a whole new campus look exceeding anything that we thought imaginable was actually obtainable. So we invited each architectural firm to interview with us, and we asked them to provide another concept drawing in rough order of magnitude with additional information and scope. We wanted to see what ideas could be generated and if we gave them different parameters. We asked them to roll out their new concepts during the interview. For the interviews, we asked the firms to look at existing parking and traffic flow and to focus the entry off of Cary Road. Since these were simply ideas, we allowed them to consider parts of the Claire Bergener Academy site. We also asked them to provide some type of soft barrier along Acacia Avenue to redirect the entry from Acacia to Cary. We asked them to envision an entirely new campus feel. They did not disappoint and provided some really exciting ideas. We also asked them to again provide a rough order of magnitude to ensure that what they were presenting was affordable to us. Next slide, please. What you see are some of those ideas. In the drawing to the left, you see the entry off of Cary that flows through an enlarged parking lot and replacement adult transition building identified in purple. You also see by the orange buildings that the entry faces south instead of east like it currently does. And there's landscape along the perimeter of the site that faces Acacia. The drawing to the right shows what the new entry and parking could look like. Next slide, please. This concept also uses Cary Road as the entrance and places the administration building at the corner of Acacia and Willow, identified as building B, with several other new potential buildings. The picture to the right shows what this might look like. Next slide, please. This concept places the entry off of Cary with a turnaround for ease of entry and exiting. The parking is to the right of the traffic flow. It also puts the administration building to the south of the site and a new 2-story classroom building that backs up to Acacia and Willow. The drawing to the right shows you what this might look like. Next slide, please. The last concept shows traffic entry off of Cary, a new administration and multi-purpose building facing south and backing up to Acacia and Willow. This shows the multi-purpose room close to the parking lot to allow for ease of entry for after-hour performances without going through the whole campus. It also offered some opportunities for solar. This concept also addresses the parking at Claire Bergener Academy. The drawing to the right shows what this might look like. All of these are simply ideas that were presented, which just shows us that there could be a variety of ways to reimagine what Jefferson could be. Next slide, please. The next steps for Jefferson will follow the same strategy as San Luis Rey. We're bringing for your approval tonight a contract for the architect we believe presented the best understanding of the district's goals for Jefferson. Once board approved, we will contract with the architect to begin the programming phase of design. We'll have a kickoff meeting with the principal and walk him through the overall process of the design and the entire project, and have him start to identify the subject matter experts for the planning committee and the focus groups. The architect will also want to do a preliminary site investigation of existing conditions and systems. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time and the opportunity to share what we've been working on since we last met. Our team has been super excited as the modernization at SLR continues to move forward. It's a long process before we're able to break ground, but we're moving along at a good rate. Jefferson presents so many opportunities that we are equally excited about that project as well. So this concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I'm really excited to see both of these schools moving forward. I just want to make sure we're clear on this. I can be a very impatient person. Shocking, I know, you guys. But So we're not going to see any dirt move on San Luis Rey until 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Unless there's something happens with DSA that we get approved sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, thanks. And other questions from other board members? Comments?
Yeah, thank you for bringing in. This is a lot of good information. So my first question is for SLR. Was there anything that addressed their current parking situation? Did I miss that part? I know that that entrance to SLR is really tough in the mornings and at pickup time in the afternoons. Is that being adjusted in these plans?
It is. At this phase of the project, we're reconfiguring that area of drop off and pickup. So it would be along the parking lot to the west of the school instead of like out in front. And, you know, knowing that this is still in the early phases of design, once we get into it further, we'll see that. We also increased the parking lot substantially.
And when might there be a visual of that so that the board could take a look at that?
Sure. That's one of the things that we'll get into in design development when we actually start getting into the finalized.
And so really I'm guessing that the staff and the community in these meetings shared that same concern about the pickup and drop off.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's being addressed.
Yes.
Isn't pick up and drop off, isn't that something that also that should be sort of in-house with the staff and administrators of that school?
We include them in every single meeting that we have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So another question I had, this is now switching to Jefferson. So we brought forward an architect. Which of the four designs was the architect that is being brought forward?
So they presented the last concept that I showed you, but I think it's really important at this point to understand that they're only ideas that they were just concepts, right? So we can pick and choose anything that we want, or maybe it turns out to be something entirely different that wasn't explored during those, you know, various concepts that we asked them to do. The reason we selected PJHM as the architect was because during the interview, they really understood the district's goals on bringing forth this modernization that would really transform that middle school. Not that the other ones didn't have great ideas, because we were really impressed with every single architect that interviewed. We just felt like PJHM had the best understanding of the goals.
I'm really excited, especially with the concepts of changing the entrance to the school, because we were kind of, when we had discussions, I think last year or the first year, it was like there wasn't a whole lot at that point. So that's exciting to see that the concepts so far are taking that into consideration.
Yeah, what is really exciting is we know that we had looked at Canyon Drive as the entrance before, and there was a price tag associated with that, right? And some of the hoops that we would have to jump through in order to go through that landfill. And so we just kind of threw everything out and said, let's start over, and really, what can this be? And the architects came up with some really brilliant ideas. So we're super excited as well, just to see where it takes us.
Having taught at Jefferson, I'm very excited. It's a long time coming, and I'm really thrilled that we're going to move forward finally. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. I noticed that we approved the architect on the consent calendar, item X, PJHM for this project, and they're also doing San Luis Rey, so we have them both in-house. And it's interesting that all four architects that bit in there came up with these some ideas on Cary Road access, and I think that's going to save us a lot of money actually not going through Canyon, which we've been looking at for a number of years without having took another look at it. So I'm excited about this, and I think staff's done a good job with this so far. Appreciate it.
I think that's a great point, Mike, too. It's not just money like that gets saved in the district's pocket. It's money that we can spend on making the rest of the campus stronger and a better place to learn. So it's a good
For sure. For sure. Absolutely.
Raquel, you have any questions, Raquel?
I actually do. Surprise, right? I know. I know with SLR, I know initially, because right now we're in the schematics part of the design and we're at the 10% or at 90, we have about 10% left to still go on that part of it. I know we have meetings tomorrow still going, but my concern is because I know like other projects that we've done within the district, drainage has always been an issue after the fact, always. And are we looking closely at things like that right now so that we know that they're going to be taken care of and not come back 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and have to put more money into something like that?
So I mentioned earlier that the civil is doing a ground survey right now, and that's part of it. While I mentioned that they're looking from building to building in the parking lots and playground areas, part of that entire scope is to look at the elevations and address those drainage issues. I hope that answers your question.
This gives us this opportunity in this whole site design to look at that drainage that we weren't able to look at so good 50 years ago.
For sure. And now we have 50 years worth of history in that area, right? So we know exactly what we need to fix in it.
Yeah. Yep.
Cal, do you have any more questions?
So I'm curious, I'm looking at the schematic and I see all the blue buildings on the right side of it. Sorry, maps is not my brain works in different ways than
SLR.
yes, SLR. So the blue buildings on the right hand side, those are all new. Are these going on what's currently asphalt on the campus right now? Or is that field right now?
It's a little of both. So the whole area will be reconfigured. So whatever, whatever is under there will be, if it's asphalt, it would be removed. If it was filled, it would be prepped so that whatever is underneath there is totally rehabbed. You can see a little bit, yeah, I guess you really can't see very well, but it is both.
Do you have a timeline on when you'll be bringing back the design that, to the board so we can look at what San Luis Rey, the full design, or is that what we're going to see?
No, you'll see further. This again is just the schematic design. So as we move along through the design development and we hone in on the actual specifics, again, schematic design is just to show us where the adjacencies are, right? Where we're going to put those new buildings, where we're going to put a new fire lane, how we're going to address the parking, that kind of stuff, just as a general layout. In design development, then we're actually going to hone in on this design this layout that we have here for you and get into more of the details. And we'll be presenting that back to you through design development. So it's not over. We'll give you more detail.
No.
I just want to thank you all because I know initially we were talking about like for Jefferson, bringing the entrance through Cary Road and other ways other than Canyon. That was one of my biggest things of you being able to utilize other spaces that we had within the Claire Bergner and things. So thank you for actually hearing and putting out there some images that are actually utilizing that space. So thank you very much, Penny, for that.
You're welcome.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Greatly appreciate it.
It's been a super fun process, so the pleasure is all ours.
Great. So
Excellent work.
If we have no more comments or discussion, thanks Penny for the update on that. And we look forward to getting more information in future board meetings. It's good
Thank
news.
you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Super. So it looks like item 7B, we have another presentation on something else exciting. Elementary report cards.
Good evening,
That
board. Require a motion? Sorry, real quick. Didn't that require, that didn't
No,
require?
no. The architect approval is on a later agenda item under business. That was just an update and information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Levy?
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education. It gives me great pleasure to share with you this evening the culmination of 18 months of work around our elementary report cards. This collaborative effort was very exciting to be part of. It was led by Mr. Thibodeau and Mrs. Richmond, who are both members of our team, in collaboration with teachers in our district. We prepared a presentation for you to tell you a little bit about our journey as we have looked to be clearer in our communication with our parents and to provide information about how students are doing currently and how they can improve in the future. Thank you very much. We'll start the presentation.
Good evening, Board President Blessing, board members, Superintendent Vitale, staff, and community. My name is Joshua Thibodeau. I'm a coordinator with curriculum instruction, and with me is Deb Wickman, our family and community outreach teacher on special assignment. We're excited to share the work of our progress report and elementary report card committees. The work of these groups was driven by the needs of our parents and teachers. We had a clear purpose in our work for revising our elementary reporting documents. We recruited from a diverse group, including parents, administrators, and teachers. To start us off, let's hear from some committee members.
Hello, my name is Kara Michelle, and I'm a first grade teacher here in the Oceanside Unified School District. I am also a member of the Report Card Committee, and happy to say that I have been since we began in 2019. I'm pleased with the hard work put into the new report cards that we have created. The committee has had dedicated members that represent classroom teachers in grades K through 5, staff members, and parents. We all have a common goal and work tirelessly to reach that goal. That goal is to create a report card that clearly explains to students and their families how they, the students, are currently performing and show achievement and growth and indicate next steps for progress. This is a great improvement from our previous report card that was found to be confusing. The committee works diligently to ensure that the new report card will meet the needs of all stakeholders. We listened and continue to listen to feedback as we strive to make improvements as we move forward. I enjoy working with such a dedicated group of individuals that all have the best interest of everyone in mind every time we meet. I am hopeful that this new report card will be something that we can use for years to come. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Mitchell. I'm a parent with inside of Oceanside Unified School District, and also I am a member of the Oceanside Unified School District Elementary Report Card Committee. My purpose and central mission of being a part of the Report Card Committee is to create a report card that is simple, easy to understand for parents and students. In the past, we had a report card that was very complicated and not very easy to understand. And so with this new report card, the purpose and the mission is for it to be easy to understand and also to accurately assess in real time how the student is doing so that the parent and the student knows how they did in that current semester.
One of the first things we did was look at the purpose of a progress report or report card. An elementary report card clearly explains to students and their families how they, the students, are currently performing. It shows achievement and growth and indicates the next steps for progress. This became our mission statement throughout the work and helped ground us in our work. We also agreed on common terminology. Progress reports are given once a trimester. Report cards are given once a semester. We're also planning on a less formal third quarter progress update. This is an overview of the work done from October 2019 to June 2020. The committee started by looking at research and articles about grading and report cards. We drafted our purpose statement, which became our mission statement. We looked at report cards from other districts. We solicited feedback to help guide our work. In February, we decided on subject areas to appear on the reports. Our work was paused in March due to the COVID-19 outbreak. In May, we were able to continue the work remotely and complete what would become our first drafts of the report cards. To talk about the work in 2020-2021 school year, I introduce Deb Wickman.
Thank you, Josh. During the summer, I was asked if I would lead this work moving forward this school year. In August, we sent out an invitation asking if there were any teachers or staff members that would like to join us on this committee. And the volunteers we received, along with several of our returning members, we convened what we are now referring to as the Elementary Report Card Committee. At our first meeting in September, we reviewed the purpose and mission statement that the previous committee had created, along with the finalized report card categories that they had created. We then drafted a timeline of the tasks that would need to be completed in order for a successful rollout to occur. With that, we had a very lengthy discussion about the appropriateness of moving forward, considering the circumstances of the pandemic that we were encountering. But the committee felt very strongly that this work needed to continue, regardless of the situation. So prior to the October parent-teacher conferences, we sent out a message to site leaders and teachers, informing them of the changes and that we would be moving from a trimester progress report to a semester report card. And we also sent out the list of report card categories and an opportunity for teachers to provide us with feedback. We also created 2 documents to help support the teachers with the transition to the new report card system. One of those was titled The Alignment of Standards to Report Card Categories. This we aligned with the pacing guide in collaboration with the pacing guide committee. And along with this, we identified the assessment opportunities that teachers had to determine students' proficiency in the various categories. The second document we created was called the Report Card Comment Guidelines and Template. Here, we generated several report card comments that could be included to help inform parents of their child's progress and what steps would need to be taken to help their child improve. And we had all of these comments translated into Spanish to help facilitate teachers completing the comment section. In November, we rolled out to staff, the principals and teachers, the finalized documents. We provided video tutorials for how to complete the report cards in Aries. We created a website link on the Instructional Resources website that had written directions along with the video tutorials and links to the supporting documents that had been created. We also hosted 3 drop-in Zoom sessions in which teachers could drop in for live support on how to fill out the report card. In December, we will be focusing on our messaging to parents. We will include with the report card going home, a letter to parents explaining the changes in the reporting system from the trimester to the semester report card. And in that, we will include a survey in which the parents can provide feedback for us in this new system. The report cards will now be printed and sent home centrally through our print shop, and parents should be receiving those in the middle of January. So to review the changes, our previous system was a trimester progress report. Progress report was giving parents information on how their student was progressing towards those end of the year standards. Parents received 3 report cards throughout the year that were sent home with the students, and teachers utilized Report Card Maker to complete those reports. Now, with our semester report card system, the reports are showing current progress of students based on our OUSD instructional pacing guide. So it'll be based on the work they have completed to date, not end of year standards any longer. These will be mailed home centrally 2 times a year, once in January and then again in June. We will still be providing the parent-teacher conferences in October, as well as a third quarter report that will be sent home during the middle of the second semester. And teachers will now be using Aries to complete these report cards. So our next step is to focus on that messaging to our parents and collecting feedback from both staff and families. Once we receive that feedback, we will be reconvening the committee and reviewing that feedback to revise our reports and our supporting documents so that by the 2021-2022 school year, we will have finalized documents.
Thank you, Mrs. Wickman. You can see here a sample report card and the categories on which the teachers grade. As you saw, our purpose statement is to communicate clearly to families. These are the areas the committee felt most important to convey progress. Due to the current circumstances of the global pandemic, we realized, even without a new report card, further guidance on grading was needed. Senior Director Vicki Gravelin, Associate Superintendent Dr. Mercedes Levy, an ODA representative, and a few committee members met and discussed what options teachers have for grading. We recommended that if a teacher does not have sufficient information to grade a student, the teacher could mark not assessed and provide explanation in the comments. We felt this would best address the potential lack of information on students' progress and convey to families the need for student participation throughout this difficult time. We did not want to penalize students whose lack of connectivity could be out of the control of families or students. We would like to publicly thank all of the committee members and all the contributing individuals who helped in this process. Please take a couple seconds to read their names. Thank you for the opportunity to share this work. Deb Wickman and I are now available if there are any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I personally want to give a shout out. I know Michael Mitchell is a parent, and I've met with him several times over the last 2 years, and he had a lot of concerns about the report card and came to a lot of our school board meetings during public comment and politely shared his concerns. So I'm so glad to see that he was on that committee and an active member as a parent. So I think that's the first time we've ever had a parent on report card committees in my recollection. So thanks. Board, do you guys have any questions or comments?
I actually have just one quick question. Is it possible that before the survey actually goes out to be able to look at it to see what kind of questions are on there that are going out to our families?
Yes, we can make that happen.
Yeah, we can provide the board with a copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you.
And my only recommendation, Deb and Joshua, is that I know you're sending the information about the new report card, which is less confusing than our prior report card, but possibly that you do a Zoom presentation on it or how to read it that is either on the website or sent out to families, however you want to do that, that doesn't take all our bandwidth away from us. But so it's not just a letter going home, that there's another opportunity for parents to ask questions, even at the DPAC meeting, whatever works.
Yes, I'm working with the communications team on Thursday, and we're going to devise that plan that's for the rollout. So there will be communication via emails and call outs. It will be posted on the websites, and we do have plans for the DPAC meeting in January. We're going to have a breakout session to address the elementary report card for the elementary parents.
Great, thank you.
I have a comment. I wanted to compliment the committee for focusing on standards and have a standards-driven report card assessment. And I'd like to compliment you on the work you've done in your efforts. I have a kind of a concern, and the standards are supposed to be clear, concise, and consistent, and the assessment should also reflect that. When you have your pacing chart, do the parents receive the pacing chart before the school year. And then again, a copy of the PACE chart if there's going to be a conference. And I know of COVID right now, it's going to be really challenging. But is that part of your program?
Ms. Evans, thank you for that question. I think we always want to make sure that there is a clear target for our teachers, students, and families. As we've been developing the pacing guide, and of course with the global pandemic, we're developing that. It is publicly available. There are no surprises or secrets. So that's definitely something that can be available and incorporated into a place that we could share that with families as well.
Okay. All right. And I'm noticing on the report card, you have like exceeds expectation and exceeds effort. That's kind of, for me, from my perspective, that's sort of a personalized. How do you, how do I evaluate one student as exceeding expectations? So that means that from my perspective, as a former classroom teacher, I expect all of my students to have I have high expectations for all of my students' achievement. But again, that's kind of a personalized perspective. So how are you going to evaluate? Bottom line is, how do you evaluate that?
Thank you, Ms. Evans. So one of the things that we think a lot about is, as we're looking at that, is we want to go back to the key standards. So for example, taking the standard for reading literature. So on the report card for the parents, it says reading comprehension. But for the professional, for the teacher, we know that encompasses reading both literature and reading informational text. But let's just take reading for literature. In third grade, it asks the students, there's actually a descriptor, and it asks the students to be able to explicitly point out details about the literature in the text. When you move to the fourth grade, it asks the students to be looking and inferring from the text. So it's a slightly more complex, a deeper depth of knowledge question. And so what we would say is a child could be in third grade and be able to draw the specific areas that reading literature, the specific details, and some of them might be ready to be drawing those inferences. So we want to acknowledge that there are children who in certain areas might be able to do that. We also know we have gifted and talented students who might be looking at the same piece of literature with a deeper depth and complexity. So we felt, and the committee felt, that it was important to reflect for families, to accurately reflect the range of students' performance, and be able to have opportunities for students to exceed. So it accurately reflects what children in a classroom are able to do.
Thank you.
So I just had two things that are concerning, but they're not something that needs to be changed right now. I think this is part of the work that we need to continue to do as a district. One is that having sat on a report card committee, first, let me say thank you, because it sounds like an easy thing to sit on. It should be straightforward, right? You think going in, but it is very complex and people care a lot about it because it is our primary way to give that feedback. So I appreciate everybody's work on this. So when you're giving marks on effort, the best information that we have about cultural bias and implicit bias is that effort is one of the things that you rate that can be most subject to that bias being carried into a rating of a student. So one, I'm really glad that you have strong guidance for our teachers, but that may be something that, as we're looking at becoming a more equitable school system, that we look at in the future. And then the second piece was, it sounded like you had a great committee that came together on grades during the COVID time. And we know other major districts have made huge shifts to how they grade, and and everyone's kind of tackling this well-known and well-established problem differently. But again, through the equity lens, we probably have some work to do at the beginning of the year to set ourselves up to make sure that we are not dinging kids for their equity disadvantages. So I look forward to hopefully getting into some of that work. And I know that lots of our board members are interested in that too. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Yeah, we have continued to be thinking deeply as a district under Dr. Vitale's leadership and the board's direction around the importance of cultural proficiency, anti-racism, and implicit bias. And Mr. Thibodeau can speak a little bit about that conversation and how we feel that our report cards will work through that. And then a little bit about just, we're really excited about how we came together as a committee in a joint communication to address the inequities that we know occur during COVID. So we're really happy with that, but we think it's something that we can continue with that thought process about. So Mr. Thibodeau?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Joyce. We've been having conversations about equity and implicit bias for months now in our system. And when something like effort grades are culturally biased, this can be a symptom of a flaw in our system, that's a bias in our system. And so I know that we're going to be addressing these biases in our system. The different issues that we've been talking about, such as racism and anti-racism and empowerment. And so by addressing that with the staff in a forward-facing way, the effort grade can come right out of that work, and we can address it in that way. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
You're saying the effort grade, could you repeat what you just said about the effort grade? It's going to come out of
well, yeah, I think I know what you're asking. Go
academics. Ahead. Okay.
Yeah. So right now the effort grade, there's not specific guidance on what constitutes the different levels of effort, and as was mentioned, this can be out of bias. It could racism could impact what perceived effort is. And so when we look at that, the equity lens in all of our work, that'll give us an opportunity to talk to the report card committee about how we offer this guidance from that lens of equity, rather than what we've been doing before, which might not have been as equitable. And as far as the academics go, I think Dr. Levy did a good job of, we're looking back at the standards. So when we aligned the work that Deb led around aligning each of the categories with the standards and then potential assessments for those, offers one piece of data that is rooted more in standards than in a bias. But we also encourage our teachers to look at other pieces of evidence that we definitely want to look through with a lens of equity. You're muted.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Was effort the only word to determine, I guess, effort or ability, or how much work the students would put into a particular subject or particular project or whatever within that subject? What I'm thinking is that if a student is, let's say, we'll use the example of third grade who reads extremely well, excellent comprehension, able to infer. And because of that, that student, that scholar doesn't have to put forth very much effort. All right. So in a way, you're saying, we're saying that, are we dinging that student? Whereas another student who works extremely hard, reading is a very laborious task, really puts their heart and soul in it, not achieving, not progressing as quickly as the other student, would they then get a higher grade for effort?
I think that's a really important question and something that we spent time talking about. And one of the things that we think is important is that as a system, both in Oceanside Unified, but across our educational system, is how do we get away from this idea of a grade is payment for work, right? And that we want it to be reflective of the skills and knowledge that the student has instead of. And so in the presentation, we talked about how we looked at the latest research, including a book, What Do We Know About Grading? And one of the things that we found out about grades in general is that they are not completely about what students know and are able to do, but also have things in like ability or extra credit or amount of work production or how quickly a student learns. So we know that those are all kind of wrapped in. So the effort grade was an effort by the committee to kind of tease out those extra things. So when we have a student perhaps who works really, really hard and at the same time may not have the performance level, that these two things can toggle independently of each other, right? So we want to make sure that we're acknowledging that students could be putting a lot of effort in, and at the same time the skills and knowledge might be a little bit different. So I think this is a really important thing. Our teachers were very committed to this, and the effort grade not to be something that would be encouraging, something for students to look towards and for families to be able to say, maybe you didn't receive the number that we had hoped for, but wow, look at this effort. And I know, at least in my family, effort was always the most important grade, that we were doing the very best that we could given the gifts and talents. And I know that our teachers have big hearts for kids, and I know that they definitely, the teachers on the committee shared that they wanted to make this as an opportunity for encouragement and growth for our kids. And we also want to be looking at this as a system, and where might we have blind spots to this. So as we move forward and we calibrate based on our first sets of marks, we can start to look at the data to see what might be some areas we could improve in.
If I might add one thing too, the other piece that the teachers really wanted to have on there was the learning behaviors, which was another way of looking at student effort, which was what they're doing in the actual class is another avenue of communicating that effort in a positive way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, and we look forward to hearing more information and seeing the survey that's going to go out. So thanks. All right. That concludes that presentation. We're moving on to item 8, personnel. I've been informed that we have some panelists that are in the waiting room. So I'm going to switch item A and B. So we're going to do item B first. That's American Heart Association Workplace Health Achievement Index Award. So I'll turn that over to you, Dr. McAtee.
All right. Good evening, board members, President Begin, and Superintendent Vitale. This is an informational item for you and good news as well for our district. The American Heart Association Workplace Health Achievement Award is given out to organizations that build a culture around health and fitness in the workplace. And Oceanside applied in 2018 and 19, and we received the bronze level award, which we're very proud to do. Took a lot of work for our team. This year we were given notice that we achieved the gold level workplace award, which is nationally recognized in Forbes magazine. And so here to present this award to us is from the American Heart Association, Taylor Ziegler, and our OUSD Benefits Manager and Wellness Committee Chair, Sarah Vermillion, and also from Keenan Associates, Dana Goen.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Zeilinger, and I am the Youth Market. Oh, there we go. One second. Good evening, Oceanside Unified. My name is Taylor Zeilinger, and I am the Youth Market Director for the American Heart Association. I am pleased to be here this evening to recognize your efforts and to ensure a healthy workforce. On behalf of the American Heart Association, we are excited to be back this year presenting Oceanside Unified for achieving a gold level award for the American Heart Association's Workplace Health Achievement Index. Moving from bronze to gold is a huge achievement. The mission of the American Heart Association is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives, and we know we can't do it alone. The AHA joins forces with businesses and organizations across the nation to achieve our mission, and we would like to congratulate the Oceanside Unified School District on joining this movement to help strengthen the health of our nation. As you may recall, the index is a measure of a company or organization's workplace health programs and the overall heart health of their employees. It is a scored self-assessment based on best practices to holistically evaluate the culture, structure, processes, and outcomes of a workplace health program. We congratulate Oceanside Unified on your ongoing commitment to health and wellness of your employees. We also know that the health and wellness of your staff rolls down to your students, so this work is more than important. Thank you for being a champion of health in our community.
Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate that award.
Thank you. And good job, everybody, staying healthy. A healthy heart right now is probably the most we can ask for.
Compliments to the district. This is truly, I think, an outstanding award. Great progress. Thank you.
I know we went from the bronze to the gold. Way to go.
Yeah.
Thank
Solid.
you.
Way to go.
All right.
In the pandemic, exactly, in the pandemic. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So we're going to move on to item 8A. Thank you, Sarah and Taylor, for joining us. Item 8A, reinstate emergency resolution number 15/1920, delegating authority to take necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of COVID-19. Staff presentation.
There's no presentation. There was a request from board members to put this back to have the board talk about reinstating this. So it's just up for board discussion and action.
Just to give my explanation for my reasoning for wanting it back is that with us closing schools now, I want to have the tool and the flexibility and the administrative's hands to quickly react to situations that could come up with us in that situation when we're not in a school type setting where daily things are happening, but we're more like in that emergency scenario, purple tier, and I don't know how long we're going to be in it, but staff flexibility to act on it as need be. So that's why I asked for it to be back on.
And this is only during the pandemic at this point, and as a board, we can look at it again. I think the addition of having additional workshops each month that talk about COVID and what's going on will also keep stakeholders up to date as well. But yeah, I want us to be able to be flexible to make quick decisions and be responsive, whether it's students back in school, students virtual learning. And I know that the playing field is constantly changing with the rules out there and lack of information or changing of information. So I support this as well.
I'm going to speak against the move to reinstate, and I have a few reasons why. One is that it's a very, very, very broad authority. And if I'm, from my understanding right now, the superintendent could close schools if there was a health emergency at any point, even without this authority, the emergency authorization. So under Ed Code right now, it can be done without any further action by the board. The second is that this grants authorities to do all kinds of things that the board is elected to oversee. And I think we have a board that is willing to come together on short notice if there's something like that for us to oversee. And I don't think we give up that authority unless we absolutely need to, because that is what we're elected to do. There's a few things that would help me to feel like this is a more appropriate move for us as a board. We could consider doing a monthly renewal on this as an as-needed basis. The current, if we were to put this back into place, it did not have a sunset. And that was another thing that made me uncomfortable about it being in place in the first place. It says through the pandemic, but everything that we've heard from experts is that this is with us for the long haul. We're in an incredibly crucial time during the pandemic right now, and we were able to respond quickly to an emergency last week. There are, I would also be more comfortable if there was a notice that was included within the resolution that said that board members would be notified if any of the emergency powers were utilized, and it gave a short amount of time that we could all get notification. This has nothing to do with, I have complete trust in Dr. Vitale and what she has done to guide us through this pandemic. I just see that this is I don't see a clear reason for us to enact this emergency resolution. And it's definitely not a safety issue because we have the authority to do that now. So that is why I'll be voting against the motion.
All right.
Anybody else have a question or comment? Sorry, Mike.
No,
I
no,
feel-
I'm sorry. I'm gonna make a motion when it's appropriate.
Okay, I feel just the opposite. It's almost a daily change with COVID. And it's not just COVID that we need to think about, in terms of allowing this, giving the superintendent this kind of power, as I talked about before. Was it last year when we had all the fires and the superintendent at that time had to make decisions that the board, instead of proacting, had to react to? I think it's real important that the superintendent does have that kind of power. And plus, we're a strong team. Granted, we are a very strong team as board members, but we're not always accessible. And God forbid, if a situation does happen, I want the superintendent to be able to take care of that situation, to be the vanguard, making sure that our students, our scholars are safe and that we can move forward.
Just a clarifying question, do you currently have the power to close down a school site if there's a safety concern, Dr. Vitale?
Yes, and I will say that I would take every effort possible to pull the board together before making decisions to close school sites. There are a lot of other elements to this that it provides the superintendent the authority that I don't currently have, but I would endeavor to always pull the board together before closing school sites unless it was an imminent threat to any of our students or staff. One of the pieces on this is executing contracts without advertising and spending district dollars. And you see that there were a lot of ratifications on the agenda. Those are two things that this authority does allow the superintendent to have and to make quick decisions and act quickly. And so that's one of the pieces of this that I think is important. But again, this is obviously a complete board decision, and I respect whatever decision you make.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the emergency resolution and reinstate it as is, as presented by staff as it was before.
I still have something to say
second
with it before we go to that.
Oops.
Well, it looks like we have a first and a second, so now we'll open it up for discussion. And I think at this point you could make an amendment. Kind of messed it up our prior board meeting. So go ahead, Raquel.
Okay, for me, like I'm mixed on this whole thing right now. Because there's some things that, again, that I think for everybody within our groups, that yes, we need to be able to communicate and get out some information. So to be able to have conversations so that our community knows that we are hearing them and that we are working to do, again, what is best for the community as a whole. So to be able to just put a vote out there for that power to happen, I don't know that that is completely always a good thing without the communication itself as a whole. But then again, we go back to that whole thing of that, are we always accessible? We're not always, all of us, accessible to be able to make whatever decisions that need to be made at the spur of the moment. And so I'm I don't know if there's any amendment that we can make to agree, like to change it, or that need to be to make it so that we have conversations that our community as a whole will know, and that we know that what's going on up front before any actual decisions are made. So I don't know what we can do differently or how we can change the verbiage on it to make it something good.
I'm not interested in fine toothing this thing and creating a new state of the art for emergency resolutions, you know, or have it go every month, or create more paperwork for staff to, you know, notify us of every move that they make on this. These are just a straightforward issue where we're in a situation where an emergency exists, and the authority for staff to take these kinds of actions is justified. And I think if we trust the staff for that, I think, you know, in the last 9 months, it's been, you know, a charm, no problems. The fact that we had to close back school and we're in the purple tier effectively is what changed my thinking about this. And so that's why I think we should be in that, still be in that state of emergency as it is commonly understood. So that's where I'm kind of just sticking with what the traditional is.
I'd like to propose an amendment to sunset this as the county exits the purple tier.
So Eric made an amendment. Does anybody want to, do you want to accept that amendment, Mike, or no?
No, I won't accept that amendment.
Okay. So right now I have a motion. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. And I have a motion to approve the item as is. I have Eleanor as a second. All right.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to call for the vote then. All in favor of reinstating the emergency resolution as is, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All not in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Aye.
All right, so I have 2 opposed and 3 approve. All right, motion carries 3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for the discussion. So we're moving on to item C, employment under a waiver for adapted physical education, added authorization. Dr. McAteer.
Yes, this is a CTC variable term waiver permit. It allows one of our recent hires, Mr. Viada. He is a adaptive PE teacher, and he has a bachelor in science and kinesiology with a concentration in pedagogy and a preliminary single subject teaching credential in PE. And he's currently working on completing all of his coursework. He has 1 remaining requirement to pass his exam. So this will just bridge that time by covering him under a waiver until he completes it in May of 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eleanor. Any questions for staff? Discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item D, new class specifications, special education paraprofessional 1 and special education paraprofessional 2.
Great. So our director of classified, Jolie Napier-Vea, has been working very hard with our CSEA negotiations team and a group of district staff, which included instructional assistants and special educators. And they were looking at the class specifications for the instructional assistants supporting the education programs. And as a result of this work, we were able to create 2 classifications. So the instructional assistant special education and the behavior intervention IA are going to collapse or combine and become what will be called the special education paraprofessional 1. And then we will have the current severe disabled classification be retitled as the special education paraprofessional 2. And so this item requires approval for the board for it to pass.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, any more questions or discussion?
Thank you to all of our paraprofessionals who are working in unique environments right now.
Great, thanks. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Moving right along, we have item E, new certificated job description, elementary curriculum teacher on special assignment, TOSA, hybrid education, and this is a temporary assignment.
Right, and this is just in response to our current status as we're working to provide quality education with our students in different learning modalities. So this would be a teacher that would work on helping create the curriculum for those hybrid learning models. A lot of work behind the scenes that go into that.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I will make that motion.
A second.
We have a first and a second. Any more questions or discussion?
I'm sorry, Todd, how many teachers do we have working in this temporary assignment?
Good question.
Well, right now we're back to virtual. So we used to be in hybrid. So we're complete virtual for elementary through high school, but that could change again. And the work that's involved in that, in those models, requires quite a bit of adjustment to how the instruction is delivered in a hybrid situation. So we've asked one of our qualified teachers to step out and temporarily help us with this role with that curriculum component.
So we have one teacher currently right now.
Correct. This is the job description for that position.
Do we have other TOSAs currently in the district? / how many?
Yes, we do.
If you have those numbers,
We do
sorry,
have
I
other-
sprung this one on you.
Todd, he just wants to know how many TOSAs we currently have, and Mercedes just jumped on because I think she has that number at the top.
Mercedes works with them daily, so she can help us out.
Yes, so currently we have one working with our parent advisor, Mrs. Wickman, you just saw. We have one in science. We have 2 in educational technology, and oh dear, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, and our English learner, TOSA.
So a handful, I guess.
Yeah. Could the hybrid TOSA also be someone that could be working with, so when our students are quarantined or have to stay home, there's a significant amount of like creating resources for them and making sure that they're accessing education. Could that be part of their purview, or is that probably too broad for the work of just one?
I know that when we wrote the job description, there was a lot of work and demand in mind. So it would depend on sort of the availability of how much time and energy they could put into another project.
All right, I have a first and a second. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of approving?
Aye.
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 Super. Motion carries 5-0. Next item F, approval of amendment to Mid-America Solutions Incorporated Service Agreement.
So this is just a procedural change that needs approval. There's no cost. When our retirees qualify for a health reimbursement account, it's funded through what's called a Mid-America account. And the Mid-America account is funded currently on a month-to-month basis. And there's been some delays in funding to these retirees. And so to help alleviate that problem, we're going to move to the funding going to 3 months at a time. So a 3-month funding in our work to avoid delays in payments to these retirees that depend on that money for their health insurance.
Thanks for the explanation. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
For second, any more questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Wow, we have a lot of these. You're busy today.
Yeah. So item 8G, this is, it's required by Ed Code, and it's in the situations where we have teachers that teach outside their certificated credential. There are positions, they're typically electives, if you look on that list there, that you wouldn't get a credential for those subject areas. So what we do is we just make a list of teachers that are teaching these elective courses outside what they're credentialed for, and it's completely by consent with the teacher.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right, any questions or discussion?
No, but gardening class looks like the best COVID class there is.
Stress.
Agreed.
All right, so let's call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. So the next item is item H.
So 8H is our PayFlex service agreement. It's amendment to that. Our insurance does all the work that's involved in abiding with IRS regulations. And so we have to process the COBRA, the retiree bills, payments, account posting, and mandatory notices. It's all done manually by staff. Usually that involves hiring some staff temporarily or overtime pay. So what we'd like to do is move that work so that it would be done through our PayFlex service agreement. There's a cost of about $27,908. However, we will receive savings from the elimination of extra temporary work and overtime that almost equals out that increased cost. So there still will be an ongoing cost, but it won't be what you see there. It'll be much smaller in actual cost to the district.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to
A second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McAteer? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries 5-0. All right, moving right along. Thank you, Dr. McAteer.
Thank you very much.
The next item 9 is curriculum and instruction, and it's item A, approval renewal for contract for Gershon Harrell, Math for America. It's a mouthful. Go ahead, Dr. Levy.
Thank you, Dr. Begin. We are very fortunate in Oceanside Unified School District. Last year, we received a Department of Defense educational grant that was targeted on improving mathematics for our military connected students. This grant was in the amount of about $1 million, just under, I think. And we are hiring our professor from UC in Math for America to provide targeted coaching and instruction support to the teachers of mathematics at Oceanside High School and our base schools. And there is no cost to the general fund. It's all grant funded.
Well, that's good news. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve, please.
I second that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, discussion?
I think
All
it's
right.
wonderful that the military is pulling their fair share, in fact, more than their fair share in Oceanside. There was a period where it was a little bit cloudy in terms of the contributions financially that the military was doing. So thank you. Excellent.
All right, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. All right, so that was, now we're on 10, student services, 10A. Ratification and memoranda of understanding to operate expanded enrichment programs for the 2021 school year.
Yes, thank you. As you know, we've been very thoughtful about and careful in thinking about how we can provide support to our families during this pandemic through our expanded enrichment program, our EEP, and our secondary learning centers. These are run by our after-school providers, or typically who have run after-school programs. Now we're asking them to provide a longer day, 6, 8, 7, 8 hours a day. So we are using our CARES funding to expand our contracts with these partners in the community to provide those services to our students.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. I have a second.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Do I have any discussion, comments, questions?
Yes. I don't see all of the schools on here. Is there a reason that the expanded is not going to all of the school sites?
Yes, some of the school sites had additional funding that we're expending first. And so this is basically gap funding for, because the after school programs are grant funded to begin with. There was some carryover that we're using first, and then these programs needed additional funds.
Okay, so these are the sites that needed additional funds, but all of the sites were covered.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no more comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries 5-0. So I'm going to take a 10-minute break before we jump into our item 12 business. We'll call it a biology break. We've been going for almost 2 hours. So can we take a 10-minute break? It is 7 p.m. back at 8:02 to get started on item 12, the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being on time.
All right.
All right, we're waiting for, there's Eric, super. All right, we're back in session. Item 12A, I'm calling a public hearing at 8:03 p.m. regarding the annual and 5-year developer fee reports for fiscal year 2019-2020. Are there any speakers?
No, there isn't.
All right. This is not a voting item, so I'm going to close the public hearing at 8:03 p.m. since we don't have any speakers. All right, moving on, we have item 12B, resolution number 12, adopting the findings contained within the annual developer fee report for 2019-20 and the 5-year developer fee report.
Move approval.
All right.
I'll
Have a
second.
first and a second. Any questions for staff?
No.
Are these funds that come in from developers, are they restricted to certain uses, or can we use them for whatever we want?
I think that's a great question, trustee. They are absolutely restricted. They go into our restricted account for facilities related. These can be used right now under the executive order for items that are related to COVID. However, these are directly related to fees collected for developers in our specific areas. So they are in our developer fee account and they are being utilized for facilities.
Thank you.
I have a first and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12C, resolution number 9, declaring results of school board election held on November 3rd, 2020.
Yes, as Dr. Vitale mentioned earlier, we were very victorious in our bond measure W. And so this is the actual formal item for board approval to accept the election results and allow the continuation of our bond program, and that we will then be bringing an item in March to discuss the formation of a brand new CBOC for measure W. But this is the formal acceptance of the winning measure.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Great.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank all the administrators that showed up to do all the walks. I mean, that was amazing. We have many teachers show up as well, and parents and community members to share the information and help us pass this bond. So thank you for all that hard work. And I know it was a huge strain on your people's time with all the work they're putting in for the during the pandemic. So thank you.
I want to say thank you to all the families that actually listened to us and actually heard us out there, because that was important in this whole thing. when we were out there walking and making our and getting our steps in daily. So thank you so much. And even for the phone calls when we were doing them and things like that, thank you for the feedback, positive and negative, because we need to hear it all. So thank you again, everybody.
All right, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Item 12D, resolution number 13, approving sale of property, Ocean Shores.
Right. Trustees, you may recall you allowed staff to enter into negotiations for the Ocean Shores property, and the city has settled on a price, and this price now is allowing us to move into the property sale agreement. Might be considered escrow for us homeowners. That is a term being used. So this is the property sale agreement that allows the property to be considered off the market. And we anticipate that this will conclude in March, with funds then being delivered to the district in March.
All right, good job, Steph. And the city, thank you, city.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone involved with this. I would also like to people who live in that area to be very much aware of what's going to be done with that property. All right, and I'll leave it at that. I know the city said that at one point they were going to expand the fire station. Now there have been other options open, so just be aware and be involved. Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain.
I'll move approval.
Thanks, Mike. Have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Raquel. All right, all in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Can we sales price? Is that appropriate to announce the sales price? Because that's public, is it, or not? It's going into our fund, so just into a property fund, whatever. But can we?
Yes, correct.
Can you state that number, Shannon? Thanks.
Absolutely. So we have agreed on a mutual price of 1.83 million.
Thank you. Should have asked you that earlier. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We are so excited. All
Yeah.
right. So our next item, 12E, the first interim financial report for 2020, 2021, and resolution number 10.
Great. Good evening, President Begin and Superintendent Vitale and esteemed board. Tonight, staff will be presenting the required first interim financial report. And before we begin the presentation, I wanted to take a moment to introduce our Director of Fiscal Services, Tim Golden, as he will be presenting the first interim report and will be available for any and all questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Golden.
Thanks, Dr. Soto, and good evening, trustees of the board and Superintendent Vitale. I am fortunate to present the first interim budget report, and with that, I will get us started. And next slide, please. So what we have here is the overview of some of the items that we're going to touch base on tonight, and primarily what we're going to be updating is the board on our activity from our last board approval to what our current status is through October 31st. So this is going to be our first interim presentation. And as you see here on the slide, some of those items that we're going to touch base on. So next slide, please. So just a few reminders here about the district, and that we've got a qualified certification for our budget since January 2019. We've been evaluating ongoing expenditure reductions and really just trying to question our expenditures to ensure that they're really following what we are trying to do as a district. And then at the bottom here, we've got some factors that are contributing to the budget gaps. And some of those are outlined with our declining enrollment, as well as some one-time funds that are exactly that, they're one-time. So next slide, please. On this slide here, you're going to see the comparison from our 45-day budget revision, which is the last board approved budget. And what we're going to look at is what our first interim budget is. And you're going to see some differences primarily in both revenue and expenditure. And a lot of that's going to be coming from CARES funding, some one-time funding that wasn't in the previous budget. So there are some changes that we'll get into the details about, but for right now, this is just more of a summary level of seeing, okay, what do some of the numbers look like and how they've changed from the last time you saw the budget. One of the things that we're just going to outline is that from our previous budget, it was before our year-end close had happened, so our unaudited actuals. So when we presented the 45-day budget revision, it was not including what the actual numbers were from 1920, because we were still doing our year-end close process, which typically finalizes at the beginning of September, and we bring that unaudited actuals report to the board by the 15th of September. So now that we have updated information and we have some finalized numbers, we put those numbers into our budget. Now we have updated numbers with our beginning fund balance and things like that. So just to give you a little bit of a timeline update, in August, we did the board approved budget for the 45-day revision. And then we had in September, unaudited actuals, we closed the prior year. So we've got updated numbers. Now we're coming up into our first interim here through October 31st. So just to show a little bit of the timeline of what's actually happening here, but we'll dive into the details of some of these numbers here on the next slide, please. One more slide, please. All right, so maybe back one. Okay, perfect. And if at any point you can't hear me or you need me to repeat something, please just let me know. But on this slide here, we're going to look at the changes in revenue. You'll see, very minimal changes with LCFF. The biggest change here is going to be the federal component, which is going to be the CARES funding, the learning loss mitigation. So the influx of that revenue. There's also carryover funds that are being reflected in our budget now that we've closed that year with the unaudited actuals. So as September rolled through, we've got new numbers for any carryover grants that we have to put into the new year budget or to add on to our current year budget. So that is going to break down essentially what some of those changes are on this slide with revenue. And on the next slide, we'll touch on the expenditure part. So as we have an increase in this one-time funds from the CARES Act with the learning loss mitigation, the expenditures are also going to be meeting that revenue influx. So if we have that one-time money coming in revenue, we're going to have the one-time expenditures. And so that's where you're going to see a majority of the budgets were put into that books and supplies here, which would correlate with what the revenue was for that CARES Act funding. In addition to that, any of those carryover grants that we have, by default, if there's carryover funds, we put them in a books and supplies budget. And then as we inform other departments and other coordinators of those programs, of these carryover funds, then we disperse that budget along the line items that they plan to expend the funds in. So just a little background on how we budget some of those carryover items here. So you'll see the significant changes, books and supplies, and that's primarily going to be that CARES funding, and it's going to be carryover grants. Next slide, please. So the components of the ending fund balance, essentially, this is just going to show the difference between our last budget and our current budget with the components of that ending fund balance and what some of those changes were. It's really just kind of informational here to see the change in what's happened. Now, the biggest change probably on this slide is really the addition of, committing to some COVID-related expenditures that are going to be ongoing in the assigned line item there. So with that, we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, question?
Can you explain the negative $724,000 under the restricted? I'm
Absolutely.
Sorry, you may have, but my mind glosses over sometimes.
Not a problem, Trustee Joyce. I appreciate the attention to detail. With this, essentially what's happened is at the 45-day budget revision, we were estimating that we would have a restricted ending fund balance of about 1.942 million. So with that, when we brought our new budgets in, and as budgets get moved and changed, sometimes that's going to reduce that budget. So as we have a more effective plan on how to spend some of these restricted funds, that by default is going to reduce that balance. So what you see here is you see the restricted ending fund balance going from 1.9 million down to 1.2. And what that really just means is that we are going to expend more of those restricted dollars, and we're putting the priority of spending those restricted dollars first, opposed to spending some of those unrestricted dollars that we all kind of hold near and dear. So the restricted balance there is essentially, if I give you a simple example of it, is if we were going to receive $20 million in restricted programs, and if we budgeted all 20 to be spent, we would have a zero balance in that account. It's just as we have some of those restricted programs that don't get fully spent, we have balances that are in those, and then we spend those in the following year. So we've just budgeted more to spend the restricted dollars first here, and that's why you'll see that decrease there.
So this may not be the correct time to ask this question. So if it comes up later, then we can. But I know that we have been doing lunches differently, our nutrition differently. And so how are we collecting the information on students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch at the current moment? And is it different than we did last year? Do we have an idea about those numbers at this point in time? Because I know that can impact our federal aid. Sorry.
Yeah, so the nutrition program, they operate out of the cafeteria fund, which would be Fund 13. And so this is going to be a report on the general fund, which was Fund 1. So their financials will look a little bit different than ours because it's almost like their own separate account effectively. Where the nutrition ties in with the general fund is when it comes to those applications, we do get funding from LCFF based on the free and reduced lunch program, as well as a variety of other factors. So that would impact our LCFF funding, the collection of those of that data. But in terms of their revenue, it would be reported under the cafeteria fund, Fund 13, which you would find in the first interim report on Form 13. So that would be under other funds in that report. So if you did want to look more specifically at the cafeteria fund, that would be Form 13 on that. I couldn't personally speak to the collection of those income reports or the free and reduced lunch applications. I'm not sure if Dr. Soto is aware of how the nutrition department is conducting those.
Yeah, let me just jump in real quick, Mr. Golden. I apologize for interrupting the presentation. Trustee Joyce, regarding the process, so we have engaged in the exact same process of collecting the free and reduced applications and doing the verification. However, we are held harmless right now for the free and reduced application process. Nonetheless, we still want to be diligent about collecting that data because it isn't just for identifying free and reduced, it also goes to our unduplicated pupil count, and also could affect our E-rate. So there's a few components that are connected to that actually application and that identification. So we are diligent about the same process. However, we are noticing right now there is a decline in the number of eligible free and reduced scholars that have submitted applications. So this is still an ongoing process that our nutrition staff is working with our school sites and our families to still submit those applications, as we recognize that the feeding has changed. However, the funding has not, regarding the actual identification. So while our percentage is down, we are not finished with the collection, nor are we finished with our outreach to make sure that we're capturing as many eligible scholars as possible.
Thank you.
So then we'll move on to the next slide here, which is going to be the multi-year projection, which is going to be forecasting the next 3 years, including the current year. And it's often referred to as the MYP the multi-year projection. And on this slide, you'll see some of the assumptions that have been made here for our multi-year projection. And it's 0% COLA, so the cost of living adjustment. We are projecting at 0% for each year. And oftentimes when we do our multi-year projection, we use a lot of School Services of California, one of the leading agencies that provides educational data, especially on the financial side. And they're right now recommending that 0% COLA across the board, as well as when looking at declining enrollment, what they're recommending is that you really pay attention to the 2022-23 school year, because right now in the current year, we have an ADA hold harmless for the current year. And then for the next year, 21-22, we're often funded off of the greater of your current year or prior year. So we're next year probably going to be funded again off of our prior year. So when we get to 22-23, that's where they're seeing the biggest impact right now for school districts. So with that, we're just continuing to pay attention to each year and our enrollment, and you'll see some of the assumptions we have here on that slide for our enrollment assumption. And we're going to continue to work with our data specialists to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information. At the Fall 1 submission, which is going to be coming up here in the next month or two, we will be getting the updated numbers for enrollment, as well as our free and reduced lunch numbers that we can use for our LCFF calculation. So some of the other items that you'll see here is the STRS and PERS, the increase to our pensions in the future years. And those are all factored into this multi-year projection. So next slide, please. So in this multi-year projection, we're going to have current year, year 2, and then year 3. And with this, we'll be removing the one-time funding. So some of those CARES funding. So when you look at the revenue and you see that drop off, just know that about $18.5 million is coming of that drop off is coming from the learning loss mitigation funds, as well as ESSER. So those are funds that we were provided and they were one-time in nature. So with the decline in the revenues from that one-time funding, the expenditures should also drop from those one-time expenditures as well. And then also the elimination of programs that are coming to their final year. So some of those fundings will also end, which then result in some of that reduced funding and expenditures. So in each year, you'll see here that we do have a deficit on each line item in terms of the expenditures exceeding our revenues. But in the current year, we don't need additional expenditures to balance that 5% reserve. In year 2 and year 3, we will have to make some decisions in terms of finding ways to meet that 5% reserve. And just as a reminder, the state requirement is a 3%. Our board does have that 5% policy in place that we're required to meet that 5% reserve. So these are some of the breakdowns that you'll see for our revenues, expenditures, and what the impact on our ending fund balance is for each of these years. So we will have some decisions to make going forward.
So I have a question for the 2021, 22 year, and then 22, 23. Are those based on our current staffing levels that we have now in the COVID? Because I know our staffing has increased with temporary employees to help with learning loss and tutoring students. And are those based on that staffing level?
So this is going to be also including, some assumptions about aligning staffing to meet with those enrollment, as you saw in earlier slides there about the assumptions on the declining enrollment. So with that, we do have some reductions that are factored into this. And if those don't come to fruition, then we do the budget updates to reflect that. So there are some built into this, but with that it's all up to what we have to do to meet that reserve. So there may be additional considerations that we would have to make going into our budgets for the future years. But right now, yes, it does include temporary staffing, but those temporary staffing positions are removed in those out years. So if hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. And our projections are projections based on what we know. So we could get additional funding since the pandemic is continuing. That would be super helpful. And then if we balance our staffing with our enrollment, those numbers will look different. I see doom and gloom here. I see doom and gloom in the out years, but it's only based on today and what we know. And there's a lot of assumptions in play here. Very conservative.
That's a perfect reminder. The budgets are what we know at this current in time. There's plenty of things that are continuously changing, especially at the legislation level, where plenty of bills are being presented, but the difficult part is it does take a process, and what we often provide is just a projection based on those assumptions. So that's typically why we try to announce the assumptions that we're making going into it, so you have a little bit of understanding of, okay, what's factored into this budget. So it's bound to change from right now to the second interim. So it's a constantly moving target, and that's why I always try to, it's a perfect time for that reminder there about that moving target and how assumptions are continuously changing.
Thank you.
All right, so next slide, please. So as we kind of showed earlier, we showed the revenues, expenditures, and the effect on the fund balance, and then we showed the components of the fund balance. This would be the multi-year projection components of the ending fund balance. So the non-spendable, which would be our store's inventory items, as well as revolving cash balances. And then those restricted balances that Eric was talking about earlier, or Trustee Joyce. And then we have our commitment to our post-retirement, which is that $512,500. And you'll notice that the assigned line item is effectively it's a one-time line item, and it's typically when we have the funds which we've laid out there for long-range facility master plan, COVID expenditures that could be ongoing. So that's where we have those items outlined, and then you'll see the reserve levels that we're supposed to be having for each year that we need to meet. And as I showed on that previous slide, in that year 2 and year 3, that 21, 22, 22, 23 year, we will be short of meeting that at the current assumptions with what we know as of right now. So next slide, please. Now we've presented a lot of the financial information that we have from the first interim with our current year revenues, expenditures, and then projecting those out into the future years, which then is now going to bring us to the fiscal stabilization plan and what the next decisions are going to be. So next slide, please. So as I've kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, continuing to evaluate our staffing to ensure that we are aligning that with our enrollment and really evaluating each of those expenditures that we're undertaking and that we're absorbing, and making sure that they are following the education initiatives that have been set forth by the board as well as the leaders in our district here. So we're continuously working on that. It's an ongoing agenda item for us as well. So we will be continuing to evaluate all of our options and reviewing all statistical information that we have. Next slide, please. And with that, we have the CARES Fund, which we mentioned, the one-time funding of the learning loss mitigation as well as the ESSER funds. And this is a slide that we had shown in previous board meetings, which just breaks down each element of that CARES funding and what those timelines are. So what I wanted to draw the attention to on this slide was going to be the looming deadline here of the CRF funds, the Coronavirus Relief Funds. And that has a deadline of December 30th, 2020. So we've got we're about 15 days shy of that deadline. And what that really means is that we actually have to have all items received that we've ordered using this funding by that deadline. And as you can tell, it is coming up very quickly, and we have plenty of items that are on the way for delivery, and to make sure we're really trying to expend it to its full potential there. And one thing to also add to this is that this is more on the personnel side, is the FFCRA, which is going to be the COVID leave, is also expiring, that each employee had access to the 10 days of that COVID leave is also going to be expiring at this same deadline of December 30th. Next slide, please. And this is just going to be a little bit of a summary of what some of the main items were purchased for using the CARES expenditures. With the learning loss, it's not all of the funds are subject to end, which you saw on the previous slide, by December 30th. Just the CRF funds, which is about just over $12 million. So this is just a quick little glance at just some of the big picture categories of what items have been purchased using those CARES expenditures. And next slide, please. So the next steps here, essentially, you might be asking, okay, what am I asking the board tonight? What we're asking is the adoption of the first interim budget with a qualified certification, particularly because when you saw in that second year out, we did need additional expenditures, as well as that third year. So any year that you would need additional expenditure reductions to meet the board reserve, then typically warrants that qualified certification. So that is what we'd be asking for tonight. And then what would we be continuing to do? We will continue to update the revenue and expenditure projections as new information is available. We will have the governor's budget proposal in January, which will also help us make some decisions about our forecasting and what our current year budget situation will be. And next slide, please. With that, I would open for questions.
So the qualified certification, it's a big if we get money, additional money from CARES moving forward, and can we get out of that qualified certification? Because that makes me nervous. I don't like being in that. And I know it's based on that third year, which is based on all kinds of assumptions.
So the tricky part about the one-time funding is really that you use it for things that are one-time in nature. And so when we receive those funds, if we commit to ongoing expenditures with those, it won't really help that deficit spending. So if we do receive additional funds, what we could do is transition some items that maybe we were funding with the unrestricted funding source to the restricted side, and that would alleviate it a little bit, but it might not solve if there's an ongoing deficit. So that's where the evaluation of what are we spending, what's our priority, and that's where that would come into effect. But it wouldn't necessarily, an influx of restricted dollars would not necessarily help us change from qualified to positive, but it could in some situations. It just kind of depends on the restrictions that are imposed with the funding. For instance, with the learning loss mitigation, they were very direct about what the use of those funds were. So the more limitations there are on the funding, the tougher it is to really, create a budget surplus or, equilibrium in there.
So call our state senators and state assembly members and ask them to extend that funding. So I assume if it doesn't arrive by the 30th, that means we have to pay for it out of the other funds. So if something arrives January 1st and we ordered it for coronavirus relief, the money would have to come out of a different fund.
That's correct. So there's different elements to that. So on that one slide where it showed the breakdown of the types of that funding, there's other funding sources like the gear funding, that we received that would expand all the way through September 2022. And there's also the state learning loss mitigation, which extends through June 30th of 2021. So the end of this fiscal year or this school year. The challenge is that we received a bulk of our funding in the Coronavirus Relief Act, our fund that expires on the 30th. So there's less funds available to use for that, but yes, you would be correct. If those items that we ordered did not come in time, we would have to shift it either to another restricted funding source, or it would be on the general fund if we aren't able to absorb that. And then to your other point about legislature, you know, as much as we can do, I haven't heard anything that says that there is going to be an extension. And as we get closer to the deadline, I start to get a little bit less optimistic, but I'm still holding out hope. But it's not looking likely based on anything that I've heard or seen. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't potentially happen. But at this point, I'm planning on it staying as it is. And hopefully there might be something else that comes out from legislature for funding ongoing in the future here.
You guys are muffled. You're not on, I don't think.
Are you guys?
There you are,
Okay.
Stacy's on.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Just keep working
Thank
through
you.
the, no problem. We get what they spend what we get. We do it. I'll move
I'll entertain.
approval.
All right.
Move approval of the first interim report for 2021 and adoption of the resolution. As recommended by staff.
I'll second that.
All right. I have a first and a second. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Thanks for your hard work, Timothy and Shannon.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along, we have item 12F, approval of local control funding formula, budget overview for parents.
Yes, this is our mandated compliance document that usually accompanies the LCAP. However, since LCAP has had flexibility, we have now shifted over to the budget overview for parents. What this document indicates is it shows assurance that the money that we've received, the revenue we received under the concentration and supplemental is being allocated for our identified scholars. So this is just the compliance document that is required to be accompanied by the first interim.
And how will this be distributed to parents, or will it be posted?
Yes, it will be posted on the website under both of the LCAP website. In addition to, it'll be under the budget area as well. So in two areas to make sure that we are able to, anybody that needs to find it can find it easily.
All right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the local control funding formula budget overview for parents.
No second.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Next item, 12G, adoption of resolution number 11. And that is a very long title, so I'll let Shannon go for that one.
This is the easiest way to think about this is we call this the TRAN. So this is our tax and revenue anticipation notes. And remember, trustees, we were notified by the governor that our spring apportionment that we are entitled to is now being deferred into the fall. And what this causes is a shortage in many school districts across the state of California to have a cash flow situation. We are one of those districts of many that are incurring that will be incurring a cash flow situation due to the deferrals. So we do get caught back up because it is not a budgeting situation. It is because of the revenues being delayed. However, we need to ensure that we are able to meet our obligations, and that obligation is payroll. And so making sure that we have enough revenue available for us means that we need to go out to what's called the TRAN. The TRAN includes not only Oceanside, but we are part of a pool participating with the San Diego County Office of Education. Many in San Diego County school districts are banding together through the advice of the County Office of Ed that's going to oversee this issuance of the TRAN. And that as soon as we receive our apportionment, then we will be promptly paying that money back as soon as possible. Actually, we have an obligation to pay that first as soon as it's received. So this is the authorization for staff to move forward is working with the County Office of Education for the issuance of a TRAN so we do not incur a cash flow shortage.
And the amount that we're asking for at this point is how much?
It is 25 million, trustee, and this ensures that we have enough for 1.5 times of payroll, 1.5 months of payroll, sorry.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the deferral, will the state be paying us interest on that deferred money, those dollars?
Well, that's a lovely question, and I would love to say that yes, they would. However, not so much. We will be gracious to accept our apportionment when it is received, and we recognize that we will be foregoing any interest at this time.
Okay, then the opposite of that, because we're borrowing money, this 25 million or so, will we have to pay interest on that money to trans?
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes,
So-
yes, we do. And we will be
So-
incurring a processing fee as well, Trustee Evans.
What's the
So
ballpark?
we're still at,
Oh,
so we'll be at a deficit in borrowing this money.
Yes. So to borrow 25 million, we're anticipating that it's going to cost us, including processing and interest, approximately 40 to 50,000. So this will be an incurred cost. However, off of a $25 million TRAN, to ensure that we have met our payroll, it is kind of what we call the cost of doing business, and we will need to move forward with that.
So we do have that cost built into our budget in some form or fashion.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for that explanation. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval and adoption resolution number 11, 2021 to authorize the trans.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any more discussion or questions from the board?
Thank you for the thorough explanation.
Yeah, thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Shannon. All right, so we're on number 13, policy development. Item A, approval of revision to board policy 5141.22, infectious diseases. How relevant?
Good evening, board. This is in response to AB 262 of 2019. It updates our board policy to reflect the new law that talks about the importance of exchanging information between the school district and the local health department. It is important that we are sharing information both ways with the local health department and that we follow the orders of the health department to address any possible communicable diseases and infection.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Raquel. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Eleanor. Any questions or
Yeah,
discussion?
Does that involve, excuse me, I'm sorry. Does that involve tracking then?
Yes, some of that would be contact tracing, but at the same time ensuring privacy. So explicitly, the board policy does talk about the importance of equity, the importance of privacy and non-discrimination. It's specifically called out in the policy.
Thank you.
This is somewhat related. No, it's not really related. I'll hold it. I do want to ask about the update on the touchless water systems that we're going to put in place, but that's not covered in this policy. So I will hold it until a different time.
Yeah, let's do that in 15. That would be a good time. All right, I got a first and a second. Let's call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. 13B, approval of revisions to board policy 5121.1, report cards. Purpose of report cards.
Thank you, Dr. Begin. So this is a revision of our policy to reflect what you've seen in our new report cards, to be having the marking periods semester, and to show the 1 through 4 with exceed standards, meet standards, below standards, and far below standards for our new elementary report card.
Great. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion because I have a question.
All right, Eleanor, do I have a second? A first and a second? All right, questions? Have at
Okay.
it.
I know we talked about this earlier and we've talked about it at other times, but the report card is coming out every semester. How do we communicate to parents that, even with the pacing guides, et cetera, how do we communicate to parents that their child is not meeting the standards for that particular subject, so that at the end it's not a surprise?
Yeah, so we still have our October parent conferences, which
Okay.
we believe is an important part of that communication. We also have the opportunity for teachers to be using our Aries gradebook, which allows parents to be able to look into and see how a student is progressing, along with our Seesaw and Google Classroom. So we believe that the communication between the teacher and the parent is of the utmost importance, and that should be predominantly in a personal and informal way, and not have it, as you say, be a surprise at the marking period at the semester.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate your hard work, definitely.
All right, I will, no further discussion. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Levy. All right, now we're to the best part of the night. Item 14, public comments. Yeah, there's people here. We still got 87.
Right.
So we're happy to receive your comments about items and issues on tonight's agenda, as well as topics within the board's jurisdiction that do not appear on the agenda. Generally, each person may speak for up to 3 minutes, and I think we only have 2 public comments tonight.
That is correct.
All right, super. So we'll go ahead and get started.
We have Serge Duarte and Jeff Olson, and they will come in that order.
Hello, my name is Serge Duarte, and I am a property owner in the city of Oceanside. The Oceanside Unified School District has proposed to implement a new hybrid learning schedule, which may take effect in January 2021 for 6th through 12th grade students. In a blatant effort to collect unearned ADA, this learning schedule provides for 2 days a week where the students will check in online with their assigned teacher for 5 minutes during 3 to 4 periods, so the teacher may take attendance. No education will take place in those days. This is similar to an employee clocking in at the start of the day with an employer, then going home for the rest of the day and expecting to be paid for the unworked day. Earlier this year, the California Senate passed SB 117, which allows for school districts to claim for full ADA reimbursement if the superintendent asserts that the school was closed due to COVID-19. However, since this bill was signed by the governor, online learning has been refined, and the school district has in fact implemented online learning procedures for their entire school population. There now exists no reason for our school district to provide anything other than a full school day learning experience 5 days a week for all their students. The 5-day-a-week full day learning schedule has been the only basis used to estimate a fair share of taxes collected to support the school districts. And as I see it, any effort to collect full ADA reimbursement without providing a full school day learning experience amounts to criminal fraud. This school district must either adjust the hybrid learning schedule to incorporate learning and educational assignments for the full week, or reduce their claim for ADA reimbursement by 40%. The board may defend this hybrid schedule in tonight's meeting. But if the school district proceeds with this hybrid schedule where students only receive 3 days of instruction a week, the most important words that will matter will be those spoken in the courtroom.
All right, I am assuming he's done. Thank you for your public comments. We have Jeff Olson next. You're on mute, Jeff.
Oh.
Still on mute, Jeff.
Yeah, you're some,
Jeez.
There you go. There you go.
I am bad at this. I've only done this for like a year. Good evening, board members and Oceanside Unified School District staff. My name is Jeff Olson. I'm representing Surfside Educational Academy. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself and several colleagues in regards to safety and growing concerns about crowding in safe spaces at Surfside Educational Academy. A bit of history: I transferred to Ocean Shores High School in 2017 after 18 years at El Camino High School and was shocked at how neglected it was. The myth of the redheaded stepchild became a truth. However, the amazing staff saw beyond all of the failing infrastructure, poor internet, no air conditioning, crowding, prison-like play yard, and unbearable noise from Oceanside Boulevard in order to reach out, connect, engage, and graduate Oceanside students for 4.5 decades, while the site was never renovated nor updated. Although sad and confused, staff, some having served Ocean Shores for over 20 years, diligently participated in plans for moving to our new home. The search concluded with the selection of Ditmar Elementary, another outdated, needy facility. And together with Claire Berner Academy, we were told that we were moving even though the school was in no shape for a dual high school. At the beginning of the last 2019-2020 school year, there were 19 teachers, a principal, and assorted staff members. We already had 2 teachers sharing a room in direct instruction and 2 teachers sharing a room on the independent study side. There were multiple staff members sharing a single office. The health clerk sat next to the principal's secretary. Closets were converted to workspaces, classes held in the library, and support staff set up shop in the kitchen. In the occupied classrooms, doors don't close, windows don't open. The 1950 heaters have exposed gas pipes. We were promised from Ocean Shores High School Child Development Center would be built and moved over to Surfside Academy in March of 2020. That's 2 months before the end of the school year, but that didn't even happen. We were also promised modular classrooms to alleviate crowding. They also never arrived. Fast forward to COVID-plagued 2021 school year. The Child Development Center's foundation has been cured for over 6 months, waiting. We have now grown to 4 programs, 51 teachers, nearly 1,000 students, and increased support staff. And we're in the top 5 biggest staffs, but in the same little rundown school. Now that Ocean Shores has been sold, how many of those monies will be used for Surfside Educational Academy? Our overcrowding has now crossed safety lines. Temporary virtual teachers, some who have lost their homeschool classrooms, who need resources or assistance, are rerouted to occupied classrooms, along with substitutes and other support staff, sometimes without notification of the home teacher, causing major potential health issues. And we haven't even returned back to school yet. We are eagerly awaiting our new overdue assistant principal, but we don't even have a space for him. In Prop H and Prop W, there is no designation for Surfside Education Academy projects. If we had our Child Development Center, we could have created safely distanced cubicles for any staff member to use, maintaining safe campuses. When will Surfside Educational Academy have its day and become the vision of a non-traditional educational opportunity Supercenter was dreamed to be? Thank you, good night, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Jeff. Sharon. All right, so we only had 2 public comments tonight. So that moves us to item 15, board and staff discussion. And I wanted to start out recognizing Dr. Shannon Soto for her 3.5 years of amazing service in Oceanside Unified. And I'm wishing her well in her new position as the Chief Administrative Officer for the Compton Unified School District. So we will truly miss you.
Thank you, Shannon.
I want to say on behalf of myself and my family, because I've known Dr. Soto since she got here, and I was the parent on the other side of the podium that was always yelling at Shannon. So I love you and I thank you for listening and taking all of my everything and being my everything. Even when I came onto the school board, and your support and your love, your unconditional love for all of our families here in our school district. You have been amazing in just being out there and putting yourself out there through even this whole COVID pandemic. And I thank you for that. And we are going to, well, I am speaking for myself. I am going to miss you tremendously. And I love you. Thank you for all that you've done for our school district and our families.
Dr. Soto, I ditto everything everyone has said. And I just want to say thank you for KWL me on the budget. You know, I greatly appreciate all that you do and all that you've done, and making budget meetings fun and understandable, you know, and just being a phenomenal person. So thank you. I know I will miss you, you know. So best wishes. And I'm so glad that our ships had the opportunity to pass.
Dan, I can't believe it's only 3.5 years. That's, you know, the Oceanside, they say we're dog years when we have a staff here. It seems like you've been here 20. We're carrying the history of the organization. But I appreciate everything you've done for us, and wish you well up north. Thanks for your service with us.
And thank you so much, Board and Superintendent Vitale. I have had an amazing 3.5 years. I am honored to have been part of this amazing community and family. I take with me many cherished memories, but more importantly, I take with me the pride of what we created here, but also knowing that you guys are all in amazing good hands and created this culture, and continue doing the good work, and be supportive as you have been of our scholars and our superintendents. I'm so honored to have worked here together. But more importantly, I just got to give a shout out to amazing Superintendent Dr. Vitale. Thank you so much for your mentorship. Thank you so much for always having the vision for us as a school district, and you have changed us forever. So I'm so grateful that you came to Oceanside and I was able to work underneath your leadership. So thank you all, Board. I'm so grateful to have been part of this amazing place. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
All right.
All right.
So we still have board and staff discussion. I think, Eric, you had something you wanted to bring up earlier. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I had the question about the water, the touchless contact water things. Do we have an update on that, or can we bring an update in the beginning of January?
Are you talking about drinking mechanisms that aren't fountains that you touch with your
Yeah,
hand?
just
Refill
like the
Refill
put
stations.
the water bottle under it.
Refill
Water
stations.
goes in. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll bring you an update. I'll get you updated information on that. Thank you.
awesome. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up in this space is, again, the same thing that was brought up last meeting, is that our students with special needs lack access to education, with not every single student with special needs, but hundreds of students with special needs lack access to education in the virtual environment. And we have a legal and moral obligation to make sure they have access to that. So I'm imploring that we get more information about a plan to get them in-person instruction early in January, so that we can make sure that their needs are being met through this pandemic. So I am asking for the board to collectively stand with me on that and get moving forward for those students.
Thank you. May I have a point of personal privilege, please?
Sure, how about it?
I just want to say that I'm very honored and very humbled to be able to continue on the Oceanside Unified School District. And thank you, Oceanside. Thank you, board members. I love you. And we're gonna overcome all of this. You know, right now we're looking at the rough side of the mountain, but like that gospel song, we'll make it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else to close out tonight? All right. I will adjourn the meeting at 9:01 p.m. Thank you and happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe.
Happy holidays.
Stay
Happy
safe.
holidays.
Wear your mask. Be healthy.
Good
Stay
job.
home.
Yeah, stay home.
Order,
Also note
order
real
in.
quick, we go back and look the nutritional services and the things that are changing. Please go look at those notations and changes because that is very important for this week for our families to know.
All right. Good
All
night.
right.